Way up in the far north, there's this vast, untouched wilderness that is hiding a staggering number of unanswered questions. This is the Alaska Triangle. And today, we're going to dive into why so many people who enter it never, ever leave.
It's a place that's earned a reputation, a really chilling one. Yeah, people call it the Bermuda Triangle of the North, but here's the thing. Some researchers claim it's actually far more active and maybe even more dangerous than its famous southern cousin.
Get this. Over 20,000 people have vanished inside this triangle's boundaries since 1970. I mean, think about that for a second. This is in the modern era, with GPS and all our advanced tracking. It's a number that's it's hard to even wrap your head around.
So what in the world is happening here? Why does this one specific part of North America seem to just swallow planes and ships and people at such a terrifying rate?
To even begin to understand this mystery, we've got to first define the vanishing zone itself. I mean, where are we even talking about?
Okay, so we're talking about a massive area, over 200,000 square miles of some of the most rugged, unforgiving land on the entire planet. This is a place where nature is 100% in charge, where it can unleash sudden, violent storms, and where strange magnetic forces can make your navigation completely useless.
The statistics are just mind-boggling, right? But it's the individual stories, the actual people. That's when the human cost of the triangle really hits home. So let's look at some of the most famous cases. This marks the disappearance that arguably put the Alaska Triangle on the global map. And it's because it involved one of the most powerful men in American politics at the time. Now, this wasn't just any small plane. This was carrying the House Majority Leader, Hale Boggs. You can imagine the kind of search effort that followed. It was absolutely unprecedented.
So the plane took off on what should have been a totally routine flight, and then it just vanished. One of the biggest search and rescue operations in American history was launched, covering an area the size of a small country. I mean, they threw everything they had at finding this plane.
And after all that time, all that effort, you know what they found? Absolutely nothing. Zero. Not a single piece of the plane, not a scrap of debris, not a trace of the people on board. It was as if they had just flown into another dimension.
With cases this baffling, there have to be some logical explanations, right? Well, investigators and scientists have proposed a few key rational theories to try and make sense of it all.
So one of the leading theories points to these magnetic anomalies. Pilots flying over the triangle have reported their compasses just spinning wildly, their instruments going completely haywire. The idea is that these powerful, localized magnetic fields could be leading them way off course, causing them to get hopelessly lost or even fly right into a mountain.
But that theory, it has a pretty big hole. It doesn't explain the cases where the weather was perfect and the pilots were on the radio sounding totally normal, right up until the second they disappeared.
Another very plausible explanation is, well, just Alaska itself. You've got winds that can literally reach hurricane levels, sudden whiteouts that can blind a pilot in seconds, and a wilderness so vast that if you do go down, the odds of anyone ever finding you are next to zero. But that brings us back to that one nagging question. Even in the most remote crashes in the world, wreckage is almost always found, eventually. In the Alaska Triangle, it often just isn't. The planes, the people, they're just gone.
And, when all the rational theories start to fall short, that's when we're forced to look elsewhere, to the stranger, more unconventional explanations that have bubbled up over the years.
And here's where we get two fascinatingly different points of view. On one hand, you have these ancient legends of the local Tlingit people. They talk about a shape-shifting creature called the Kushtaka that mimics human voices to lure people to their doom. And on the other hand, you have modern pilots reporting UFOs, like that famous 1986 case where a JL cargo pilot was followed for nearly an hour by a massive, silent object that was also picked up on radar. And this leads us to the most speculative idea of them all, the interdimensional theory. It proposes that the unique electromagnetic fields in the triangle might be strong enough to actually disrupt space and time, causing people to literally slip out of our reality. I know it's impossible to prove, but in a place with 20,000 missing people, can you really afford to just dismiss it entirely?
So where does all this leave us? Well, it leaves us with a pretty unsettling verdict. This mystery isn't just some dusty old story from the past. It's still happening. Look at just the last few years. In 2017, an experienced hiker vanishes, leaving only his gear behind. In 2020, a plane disappears minutes from landing. In 2022, 2 hunters vanish from a perfectly intact campsite. These events are still happening with an unnerving regularity.
So the ultimate takeaway here is this. There is no one-size-fits-all answer. Whether it's the weather, or magnetism, or a legend, or something else entirely, no single theory can account for the sheer variety and strangeness of the disappearances in the Alaska Triangle.
And that forces us to reframe how we even think about this. Maybe we've been asking the wrong question all along. Maybe the real question isn't what is causing these disappearances, but what, if anything, connects the victims? What makes them the ones to vanish without a trace? And that is the thought that truly keeps the mystery of the Alaska Triangle alive.